Hello, friends, and welcome back to Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and today I have a handful of things I just want to touch on. This won't be a long episode, but definitely want to touch on a few things. By the time this airs, it's going to be about a week from today. So a couple of things I'm going to talk about are timely, but keep in mind, this is being recorded about a week before the broadcast. So today is July 18th. And I want to go through a few things that are on my mind and a few things that loan officers, realtors should be focused on. The first thing I want to touch on is interest rates, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what's the Fed going to do. I'm trying to stay on top of this for you guys, just so you can continue to have my perspective on what's going to happen. Look, we just had jobless claims come out. Another, that was up 20,000. This is for the week after the 4th of July holiday week. And look, that's more weakness in the jobs numbers. We continue to see this despite the inconsistencies overall with just the way that employment and unemployment are reported. We're still seeing weakness in employment. And if you guys remember, I've talked about this before, the Fed really has a dual mandate, right? It's to keep full employment in the U.S. economy, but also to manage inflation. And what we've been seeing is a pretty reasonable decline in inflation. We talked about that a couple weeks ago on my last market update. But we're continuing to see really good numbers on inflation. Now, here's the thing, is that we measure inflation with CPI and PCE, the PCE being the Fed's kind of favorite measure of inflation. But let's be honest, these are really old models. They've been in place for over 25 years. And I think it could be argued, are they the most accurate at showcasing for us what's really going on with inflation? They strip out food and energy, which people go to the gas pump, go to the grocery store, man. Like, what do you mean there's inflation's coming down, right? So, you have that piece of it, which I understand the volatility involved there with those components, which is why they strip it out. But there is a website called Trueflation, and it was interesting. MBS Highway the other day showed a clip from Trueflation's website regarding what they're showing for housing expenses and rent expenses, right? That kind of what would be equivalent to the shelter component of the PCE or CPI. And those numbers are looking quite a bit lower than what's currently being reflected in the CPI and PCE numbers. I think PCE was over 5%, 5.2, 5.3, somewhere in that neighborhood. And what we're really seeing on housing and rents and homeowners equivalent of rent, et cetera, is closer to like 3%, 3.2%. So we know that the shelter component, because of the way they do the calculation in PCE, is a very lagging effect. We've talked about that for a long time. It is finally coming down, but all indications, I guess my point is that it's going to continue to come down. And with that being such a huge part of that calculation, we think that the Fed's going to continue to see, at least in the PCE numbers, that inflation's continuing to get better. So you couple that with the declines we've seen in inflation year over year, and then you add to that the most recent job data, and we feel like very strongly the Fed has everything that they need to be able to start making cuts to the Fed funds rate. It's pretty much anticipated, I would say almost 100% anticipated, that that's going to happen in September. I do believe there's still a meeting here at the end of July. Don't think they're going to do that, but gosh, with these new numbers and everything that's going on, I guess you never know what could happen. But these numbers change a lot, so we're going to stay on top of it, but just know that a lot of people are anticipating a move with rates in September. Now, what does that look like? What does that do to mortgage rates? We all know that the Fed funds rate is not directly tied to mortgage rates, but we can think about back when the Feds increased the Fed funds rate. The mortgage rates, mortgage-backed securities sold off. They were down 100 basis points, 150 basis points in one day. If we saw that sort of move in the other direction, this could mean a pretty substantial improvement in mortgage interest rates. Now, will that happen? I don't know. People ask me these questions a lot, just, one-on-one when I'm talking to people. And I think what ends up happening is when there's this much anticipation of a Fed rate cut like there is right now. I mean, like I said, I don't know if the official stat is 100%, but it's pretty close to 100% that people expect that to happen in September. A lot of that gets priced into the market. So then as long as it hits the number that people are expecting, we may not see as big of a move, but we'll see what ultimately ends up happening. I feel like there's some people out there that are, because this is being talked about so widely about the Feds finally cutting rates, that maybe people think it's a good idea. Well, maybe I should wait to think about purchasing a home until we see if interest rates come down. And I just want to echo what I've heard so many people say, and we've said it on here before. I said it when Anton was on the show, is that what we expect to happen as interest rates come down, which we think they're going to do as a result of all this, that there's going to be a flood of people into the home buying market, not just simply because interest rates are down, but because people have been ineligible to even participate in the housing market because they don't qualify because of where interest rates are. So more and more people will qualify for homes as rates come down, and more people will be comfortable with the payment, even if qualification wasn't what was keeping them from pulling the trigger before. So, look, with still very low inventory, although it is up a little bit, still historically low inventory. You couple that with a reduction in interest rates, and we think it becomes a very challenging real estate market for those that want to get in and purchase a home. So I wouldn't wait personally. I mean, if you're thinking about refinancing, I would probably wait. I know there's a lot of people out there trying to convince people to refinance, to lower the rate. I see a lot of brokers out there saying, hey, if your rate's below 6.5, call me today and get a refinance. I'd probably wait till those interest rates come down a little bit more marketably before I decided to take on the cost of refinancing. But look, everyone's situation's different. You got to do what's right for you. And if you need equity out of your home, that's a whole different story, right? I think that people that need to consolidate debt, there's a lot of good reasons that you might consider some sort of a debt consolidation, home equity loan, or some other way of tapping into your equity. That's kind of a little bit of a different scenario, in my opinion. But okay, so I wanted to talk about that. That's what we see happening with interest rates. Now, the stock market, it's weird. I was right. I was preparing for this episode, and I was going to talk about how the stock market has just been on a terror, right? I mean, really, since the debate, and I don't want to be political here, but definitely there's been a change in sentiment about the election since the debate, and then we think just about last weekend's events where the attempted assassination on Donald Trump took place, and kind of what happened after that. There's no question that the polling and the overall feeling right now is that Trump is definitely leading in the election numbers right now. And why do I bring that up? Like, what's the point? Again, regardless of where you are on this thing politically, what this is doing from a market perspective is it's giving a sense of certainty. So what the markets don't like is uncertainty. Now, when you see something like the very tragic, assassination attempt on the past president, you think that might be something that is actually creates chaos in markets. But because of the impact on the polling and the election, what it actually did is it gave the market a kind of solidifying what's likely going to happen with the election, at least at this point. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But as of right now, the markets are looking at this going, look, the polls, it was already challenging for President Biden after what happened with the debate and kind of the fallout from that. And then you add to that, what happened with the assassination attempt and the Republican convention. And all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, numbers are really looking very solid for Trump to get elected in this election this year. And the markets see that as stable. They go, okay, now we kind of know what's going to happen. At least they think they know what's going to happen. And that's what you're seeing play out. And as a result, the stock market has just been on a tear. Crypto is up. Gold. I mean, everything is kind of moving as if Donald Trump had already won the election. Now, here's what we know is that things can change, right? There's no question that things can change. So I wanted to point this out because a lot of people are like, why is this happening in the market? And what I wanted to, convey to you is it's this perception of stability that has created what we're seeing in the market. Now, like I told you, as I was preparing for this, I looked at the Dow Jones today, right? I said it's the 18th of July. It was down 500 points. So there you go, right? I mean, but if you do look at the graph, the stock market has been on a terror for the last couple weeks since the debate, which I think was around the 28th or something like that, right? The end of June. And then today, obviously some profit taking. I don't know exactly what happened in the Dow. We'll see what happens next week before you guys watch this episode. But keep an eye on that. Now, what could change this? Well, a lot of things, in my opinion, could change this. We could see a change on the Democratic side as far as who, they're putting as the top person on their ticket. Does Joe Biden choose to step out of the race? Who do they put in his place if that ends up happening? Is there some other things that happen? Is there fallout from the Republican convention happening this week? I don't know. There's lots of things that could create instability in this. But for this window of time, post-debate and up until really today, there's been this feeling like, hey, this thing has really shifted towards the Republicans. And look, people know what to expect from Donald Trump being president. He was president before, so they kind of know what he brings to the market, and the market's reacting to that. So just keep that in mind. Unfortunately, it also means that if we see changes in polling, it very well could impact the market, which is crazy, but it's the reality. So keep an eye on that as we move through. It's going to be a crazy end of summer, fall, and into the election, you guys. If it wasn't crazy enough already, it's going to continue to be a bit of chaos. But just watch for that. If the polls are really heavy for any candidate, that is providing a level of certainty to the market, and they're going to react as if that person was already in office. So we're seeing some of that. All right. The other thing I want to talk about is the NAR settlement. Like, this thing has been beat to death. So I'm only going to spend a minute on the NAR settlement. There's so many other podcasts and ways that you can get information on this. But for my audience in particular, right, for those loan officers that work for me, realtors that know me or watch this, I just want to remind people how significant this NAR settlement is. That's why there's so much content out there about this. And all I want to bring to people's attention is that there is a whole lot of people that are confused about what this ultimately means for them. And I mean a lot of people confused. I don't know that all loan officers understand the impact and the strategies they're going to have to deploy to be able to help their customers navigate through this. I think there's a whole bunch of potential home buyers out there that don't know what the impact is of this NAR settlement. They may not even be aware of it. They are concerned about, do I really need to 100% marry my realtor, like commit to this realtor before they even show me a home? What does that look like? How am I going to cover the cost of paying for my representation from my real estate agent if I don't know if sellers are going to pay for it, if they're not going to pay for it? How does that impact things? So a lot of questions and confusion out there. So I want to bring your awareness to this because it's up to us. It's up to us to educate them on what's going on. So look, if I'm a loan officer or if I'm a realtor, I would be wanting to be as knowledgeable as possible about the possible ways that this could go down for my customers. And we should be proactively helping to educate the real estate community, if you're a lender, and the home buyer community about what this is going to look like. And it's not just about once I meet with the client. I think there's some great strategies. Matter of fact, I'm going to put a link in this description to a video that was on Mortgage Coach's web YouTube channel, and it was Jeremy Forcier. It's like a 5-minute video, you guys. I suggest that you watch it. Jeremy does a really good job of showing how it is he's using Mortgage Coach to give the borrower multiple options, and he's actually using that to educate the real estate community on how it is he's going to counsel their buyers when they come to him for a mortgage. Every loan officer should be doing this in some form or fashion. So Jeremy did a great job. Shout out to Jeremy for that. It's really good. But everyone should be doing that. That's why he shared it. Jeremy's the kind of person who will share his ideas openly, knowing that most people won't take action on it. I encourage you, if you're watching this, to take action on it and put together a similar presentation, not just for the benefit of your buyers, but again, to go out and educate the real estate community on how to address this question with their potential buyers. Keep in mind, they're going to be going through a whole new process of convincing these potential home buyers to use them as their representative, because now it's not a for sure thing that the seller is going to pay their commission. They may have to pay it themselves, or it may need to be negotiated, or they may choose not to even look at homes that don't offer, where the seller's offering to pay their agent. There's a lot of subtlety to this. And so educating the real estate agents on how to help them navigate that conversation and give confidence to their prospective buyers on how it is they're going to work with the lender to come up with solutions that work for their situation. That's going to make a buyer more likely to choose that agent if they're proactively talking about how it is they're going to help them deal with this potential challenge. With that being said, my guess is, in most cases, from what it sounds like, sellers are still going to be offering to pay commissions, but that's for now, and this could change. So I would be ahead of this, right? Watch that video that Jeremy did. It's awesome. Great job, Mortgage Coach, for constantly having people like Jeremy on, putting out that content for all of us to go and view. It's right there on YouTube. Check the link down in the description. All right, the last thing I'm going to touch on, you've heard me talk about it before, but if you're a loan officer, now's the time to really be ready for a refinance boom. Maybe not a boom, but a cycle nonetheless. We're going to see a reduction in interest rates, and the time to prepare for that is not when interest rates drop, right? It's not. I mean, look, if we have, let's say that the Fed comes out in September and they drop 50 basis points. I mean, everyone expects them to do something. They think they're going to go a quarter, they go 50. All of a sudden, MBS improves by 200 basis points. Are you prepared to deal with that? What is your action plan that jumps into place if that happens? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, what if it does? What if something else happens in the market? Maybe it's not September, but maybe it's the first part of next year. We don't know, right? Maybe it's with the election. Maybe there's some major shift up that happens, and as a result, there's a big dip in rates. There is a lot of people out there ready to pounce on this book of loans that's been written over the last couple of years that have elevated interest rates. I actually heard just today that Better.com, our good friends Better.com, probably the worst mortgage company, in my opinion, in the world, but they're ramping up. They're hiring people. They're hiring loan officers. They're hiring sales leadership, getting prepared for this. You do not want to lose your clients to Better.com. You do not want to lose your clients to, people, brokers that I know are out there that are just ready to go after what they perceive to be loans written by companies with higher interest rates and so on and so forth. So there is a whole slew of people that are ready. So the question is, are you ready, especially to protect the relationships that you've worked so hard to build, people that you've met with over the last couple of years that you promised them we would manage your mortgage and we would get back in touch with you when the time was right for you to save money? You got to be prepared for that. We've talked about it in previous episodes. We talked about HomeBot. We talked about Bonzo and having a CRM and dialing in your CRM. There's so many things that you could be putting together. And I wouldn't even be afraid to start literally making phone calls to those people, not to convince them to refinance today, but to let them know that you're still watching their mortgage. There's going to be more than likely an opportunity in the near future for them to capitalize on this shift in interest rates that we think is going to happen and get them into a lower interest rate, right? They can finally stop dating the rate and get into the rate that they want to ultimately spend the rest of their life with, right? So little play on the buy the home, date the rate. Okay, well, I'll move on from that. That was weak attempt at humor, but you guys get my point. Look, that's it. That's my episode for today. So some big things, you guys. Keep an eye on what's going on with the employment numbers and inflation. We got an inflation report coming out. I think it's going to be the day or I think right around the time that this episode airs. So watch inflation, watch employment. That's your sign on what the Fed's going to do. Watch what's going on in the election, because if the polls are really heavy right now, kind of heavy towards Trump, that could change. Maybe they end up heavy in a different direction. Maybe it's Biden. Maybe it's someone else that replaces Biden. We don't know. But just know that if that number's close, instability, market's not going to like that. If it's one way or the other, they're going to act as if that person is potentially already in. Educate your people on the NAR settlement and what's going on. Watch Jeremy's video and be ready when rates drop to capitalize on those opportunities. You guys, thanks for your time and attention today. Thanks for always watching Market Shares episodes, because I know some of you listening and watching are here every single week, and I thank you for that. If you do get value out of this, tell somebody about it. I ask you that every single episode, because referrals are what's going to help us grow this audience. Those of you that watch it every week, you love it. That's awesome. But you need to let people know about it if you could. I would really appreciate that. And if you are listening or watching for the first time, subscribe so that you can catch the episode that drops every single Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Until next time, take care.